Support for Arts Weekly is provided by PBS 39, the Hour Foundation, Martin Tierney, and the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne.
This is Arts Weekly. Arts Weekly is produced in cooperation with the College of Visual and Performing Arts at IPFW, offering degrees in fine arts, music, theater, and visual communication and design.
Welcome to Arts Weekly. I'm John O'Connell, Dean of the IPFW College of Visual and Performing Arts. Today, I'm delighted to feature some local movers and shakers in the world of arts and culture. In the second half of the show, we'll meet local actress, dancer, and choreographer Leslie Beauchamp, this week's featured Fort Wayne artist. But first, the downtown scene in Fort Wayne is hipper and hotter these days thanks to some local young entrepreneurs behind the grassroots organization A Better Fort. I'm pleased to welcome Alex Smith and Kelly Lynch to Arts Weekly. Gentlemen, welcome to Arts Weekly, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, John.
I'm very excited to hear about A Better Fort because it's kind of new. You're only about 2 or 3 years old, correct?
Sure. Yep. 2010, I think, is the official year that we started getting together and making our presence known.
And have you both been with Better Fort since the beginning, or?
Yeah, for the most part. Kelly came in on a project we did probably a year after we called it A Better Fort, and so that's when we started working together.
Yeah, well, let's start first with some personal information before we talk about A Better Fort. Alex, you've been with it the longest, yes. But what do you do in Fort Wayne, and what brought you to Fort Wayne, and how long have you been here?
I'm a lifer, so I have been here my whole life. Yep. I went off to college at Indiana University, came back, worked in financial services before I completely left that industry and started my own business with a lifetime friend of mine named Shane. The company's name is 3BG Supply Company, online, offline distributor of parts that go into machinery. It's probably the easiest way to explain it.
Right, for those of us that, Kelly and I are like, okay, yeah. We're starting to nod off here, Alex.
Parts?
Parts, machinery, okay, fine.
Let's put it this way, it's not the sexiest industry.
Right, exactly.
Better Fort is a lot more, lot easier to speak,
right.
speak on.
But you are a true entrepreneur then?
Sure, yeah.
I would say so. If you left at a young age and started something on your own, that's terrific.
I was 23 and Shane was as well, so.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Kelly, what do you do in Fort Wayne?
Well, I am a freelance filmmaker and a creative consultant primarily, and I've been here more or less my entire life despite 2 stints, one in Chicago and one in Los Angeles, where I went for school and for work. And I've always thought of this place as home, and when I came back from Los Angeles and Chicago, I felt like the community had something to offer, or at least had some elbow room for people like me that had ideas and wanted to do stuff, and that's sort of about the time that Alex and I collaborated on the My City music video.
Yeah, so what did you do in Chicago and LA? Because that ties into what that did. I want to talk about that in a second.
Sure, I actually attended IPFW until I was lifted out to Los Angeles for an internship with NBC Universal, and then went to the New York Film Academy out there, and just sort of realized that my passion was telling stories or being a part of the storytelling process in a motion picture capacity, and then went to a more traditional school in Chicago at Columbia College. Mm-hmm. Left there in 2007, bombed around as a freelancer, either working for the railroad or working in the film industry, and kind of settled more or less in Fort Wayne in 2008.
Right.
So
I'm happy to see that the Fort is keeping young people who, with your talent, coming back and staying in the Fort, because Fort Wayne needs that. So sure. I'm happy about that. So you met on a project which really kind of went viral. Tell us the beginning of that project to begin with.
Yeah, well, you nailed it. You said you just spoke on the retention of young talent. Yeah. And as I was coming up in my college years, there was the brain drain going on in Fort Wayne. Individuals going off to Chicago and Indianapolis and surrounding areas that had more energy, more social life, more social activities for the young business professional. And that was the premise of which A Better Fort got started. And the first project that we actually embarked on was called the My City Music Project, where we brought together local hip-hop artists and singers, producers, videographers like Kelly, and Kelly never left. So he stuck around. Lynchpin Creative is the name of his company that produced that video, and I think you're right. It did go regionally viral, and
Yeah.
it's at well over 250,000 views on YouTube, and did some good things for the arts in this community as well. And
It did some good things for the individual artists as well. I mean, there's a couple of artists that have really been highlighted from that video, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was their springboard, more or less.
Right,
yeah.
right. So that was okay, so what's the impetus for a better fort? So you and your friends were talking, and you wanted to...
The impetus was conversation. We were having conversations, I think it was every Thursday, outside of our workplace. And we were talking about the lack of opportunities for young people to get involved in the community. We had come from backgrounds where we were heavily involved, whether it was at the university or elsewhere. And we started volunteering. We started getting our friends involved with volunteering, and eventually we put a name on it, the name of Better Fort. Young people are easily amused by branding, so when we did that, it intrigued young friends and family. They started coming out to the different volunteer events, and that was the impetus that is now a Better Fort.
Wow. So it's actually a community organization. It's not, because I thought it was more of a social organization, but it actually has sort of the drive behind it, or if you will, the mission would be to involve young people in volunteering in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, and it's become twofold. Definitely community empowerment, but also the retention of young talent through the volunteer opportunities and the projects that we do.
Right, right. Let's talk about some of those projects. You've got something coming up Friday night. What is that?
Yeah, it is the sequel to, it's the second of two.
Listen to the film guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Sequel.
Wait for the reboot.
Can I be in the reboot?
It's the second of two block parties, or what originally started as block parties. The first of which is called House for a House, which Better Fort has hosted and produced for about 3 years, and it's finally gotten so successful. It's at capacity that to do this sequel, the original plan was to have the festival there on the landing on Calhoun Street, or excuse me, on Columbia Street, but they've had to expand it to Headwaters Park, to the pavilion there, because of just how many people showed up for the original event this year, just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh.
And these events were commonly named House for a House because of the nonprofit that benefited financially from the donations, which is the Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House. And this year, A Better Fort decided to name it after a former mayor who did a lot of great work for the city, but whose name has sort of become a national joke. So as a way to sort of take that name back, we decided to appropriate the name Harry Balls or Balls to the event. So these are the Balls Party Series, or Downtown Event Party Series, I think more accurately is the way to put it.
So there, is it music? Is it entertainment? Is it dancing? Is it speechifying? What? All of that? Or?
Yeah, it's all of that. Primarily music. There's local DJs that will be showcased all night on a 15-foot stage that in front of probably what's the biggest crowd they've ever performed in, and hopefully a catalyst for their personal careers as well. But there's other activities like glass blowing is going to be going on there. There's vendors, local vendors, food trucks involved in it. So yeah, it's a multifaceted entertainment concert
How many
series.
people do you expect to
We
attend?
had 4,500 last time.
Ooh.
We'd like to match or surpass that.
Right.
Behind the momentum, it was just a month ago, so we're hoping to surpass that.
Right. I would imagine a lot of your advertising is hip and hot and social network, and, right? I mean,
it's
not
socially
necessarily
motivated, I think is the way to put it. A lot of
Yeah.
people really respond to this, and there's a significant word of mouth that's attributed to it year after year.
Right.
And one of the principal commonalities between these block parties, these EDM festivals, and even the My City music video is about changing the perception that a lot of people have of the region, of downtown Fort Wayne, of the city itself. People like to presume that there's nothing happening here, that there aren't opportunities for people of all ages, and when they see a music video like that puts their city on, or when they experience this incredible block party with their friends in the middle of downtown, they think, oh my gosh, this stuff is happening here. I had no idea that Fort Wayne was capable of this, or this existed here. And I know that gives us a lot of satisfaction, but it's also, there's a challenge present there too, to continue to meet that perception and turn it around. So we've become sort of the Avengers, I guess, of Fort Wayne in that capacity, because especially for me, I'm in love with the city's history and its story. The more people, if they discover that story via these parties or music videos or events, the more people will stay here and hopefully invest themselves and continue to make the community better.
Well, tell me briefly then a little bit about who you're benefiting, because I actually did not know that existed until I was doing the study for this interview.
Yeah.
The Mad Anthony's
Children's Hope House.
didn't know about it.
We've consistently donated $5,000 every year to them from the event. We'll do the same this year. And that came out of a member whose daughter was put into the Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House. Their family stayed there during that birth, and so that's where House for House came from, and what we'll continue to do.
Terrific. What other events do you have coming up during the year that are part of A Better Fort?
You want to go?
Yeah, we have Zombie Prom coming up here, which is usually held on or around Halloween, and it sort of takes the zombie walk atmosphere but combines it with yet again another sort of party atmosphere, so people dress up in costumes and they come out, and we usually take over a downtown haunt, so to speak, for it. And there's also the Shindigs event that we provide volunteers for, and Alex can speak more to that than I can.
Yeah, Shindigs National Soccer Festival is a huge festival in the athletic field. It brings a lot of people to Fort Wayne. And for the last 3 or 4 years, we've consistently facilitated the volunteers for that.
That's a lot of people, Alex.
Yeah.
That's several hundred people, I would imagine.
Yep.
Wow.
We've done over 100 young adults each year volunteering. We've gotten good at it, so those numbers have dwindled down, and we don't need as many volunteers. But it's an opportunity for people to build their resume, young adults especially.
Well, that means you're kind of creating a list of people you can go to, young people that are interested in doing some volunteerism for their community, and you can sort of line them up with what interests them most, I guess.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, our database now is over 300 repeat volunteers, so people that have come out not just once but repeated.
Well, it's really great to meet both of you. I can't wait to this segment of our show sort of sets apart this idea that young people aren't interested in their community in Fort Wayne, because you guys set a great example for that, and I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you both.
Likewise.
And good luck with the event and with A Better Fort.
All right, we'll hopefully see you there.
You might see me there. Are you kidding? All those young hip people dancing? I'll be at the front.
It's an all-ages event.
It's an all-ages event, right. Well,
thanks, Sean.
I need an all-ages event, actually. Anyway, thank you for joining me.
Appreciate it.
Please take this minute to view our performance calendar of what's coming up in our area, and I'll be right back with featured Fort Wayne artist Leslie Beauchamp. Leslie Beauchamp is a local actress who has been both on stage and behind for many years, exercising her many talents in everything from choreography to acting in just about all of Fort Wayne's local theaters. I'm pleased to welcome the multifaceted dynamo, Leslie Beauchamp, to Arts Weekly. Welcome, Leslie, to Arts Weekly.
I've never been called a dynamo before. That's
I know,
kind of
right?
Fabulous.
I know. I was like, Leslie Beauchamp, the dynamo, is on my show. How lucky for me. Last time I had to share the stage with your husband.
I know. We didn't need him this time.
This time he's gone. We don't need to talk about him.
It's just us, just
well,
the two of us.
Thank you for joining me as a featured Fort Wayne artist.
I'm always happy to come and talk about theater.
Well, when I arrived in 2007, there were about 3 names I heard about in the theater, and you were one of those 3 people.
I hope it was in a good way.
It was in a good way, but it was about how many things you offer to the theater community.
Oh.
You've been in Fort Wayne for how long?
Well, my father is a Fort Wayne native, and he was in the service, so we moved a lot growing up. But we moved back here in '76, so practically my whole life.
Right,
I think I was 11 when we moved here. So, yeah.
And were you always a theater child? Or?
No. In fact, I came to theater through music. I was always a music buff and a book buff. People don't believe this when I say this, but I was really quiet and shy as a child.
I've known many actresses that started out quiet and shy.
I really was.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of a nerd. I loved books. I loved reading. I loved to read plays and everything. But I really gravitated towards music. I loved music, all kinds of music. And it was a weird happenstance. I was it was the summer between 6th and 7th grade, and I was in band. And my now my very best friend and I were the last two to be picked up. And we were kind of sitting there on the steps of the junior high, and we, as everybody was picked up, you know, we kind of gravitated towards
Right.
each other.
The-
and it was
the
just
lost
the two
children
of us. Yeah, it was just
being
the
left
two of us.
behind.
And so he actually was a huge theater buff. And it was through him that I learned how to enjoy theater. I mean, I always enjoyed the arts in general, but like I said, I was more of a music.
So what was the first play? Because I know my first play.
I know my first play. I was a freshman in high school, and it was, I even had a line. It was The Mouse That Roared. And my line was, "Ban the bomb."
Ban the bomb. And you said it over and over again. Even though it was an alliteration, I can get it. I won't get those reasons.
Petrified that I was going to forget it.
Yeah.
It was terrible, but I did it.
Great.
And then, it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year. My drama director, Dennis Eller, was actually directing Center Stage Theater, which at the time used to be housed in Harding High School.
Oh,
and
was it a civic theater or was it
no,
a
it was a community theater.
Oh, it was a
It was a
community,
community
okay.
theater, and it was called Center Stage. They may actually still do things. I'm not sure. They did for a long time.
Right.
But he was directing The King and I. And so I thought, well, I can go and audition for that. And it was through that I met a lot of community artists. I met Abigail Anger, who is a huge actress, still is, very talented actress and choreographer in town. And then through that, I auditioned, because Brian made me, I auditioned for the civic show. My very first civic show I auditioned for my sophomore year of high school was George M. And through George M, I met everybody, looking back, who really was an impactful person in my life. I met Brad, met my husband.
Met your husband? Wow.
I met Brad when I was 16.
Wow.
I met Larry Life.
Larry Life, right. Was Larry the director?
No, Larry was the star. He was George M.
Oh, he was George M. I think we have a photo of that. Is that
I think
him
you may.
as?
Yes, that's him with this.
That's
yes.
with,
I met Larry.
okay,
He was
yeah.
George M.
He was
Cohan.
George M. Great
met,
photo.
Yeah, it was great. Yep, that's it. And I met Mary Kay Perkins, who is still one of the most influential people in my life, as well as with Larry, through her choreographic efforts. And I was I have to tell you, back in the olden days, when we used to audition, when you would go to a civic audition, there were hundreds and hundreds of people there. And Mary Kay actually was with the ballet at the time, and she would come over and she would choreograph. And so there were hundreds of people, and we would have these dance auditions, and I was absolutely petrified to be going there. And I thought, what has Brian gotten me into?
Two left feet.
It was. And so you would do this huge dance audition. It was almost like a chorus line. You know,
Right.
you do these
absolutely.
huge dance
Yeah.
auditions,
Yeah.
and you'd be whittled down, and then you do the vocal auditions. And I was lucky enough to get cast in this show. And it's so funny. Many of my friends, who are still my closest, dearest friends to this day, I met through that kind of show. I mean, Larry, rest him, he was there, and Mary Kay, and I met Brian Wagner and Jim Nelson, and through them, Larry Wardlaw. And it was just, you know, when you look
people
back
who are, all people who are really active still in
Absolutely.
the theater of Fort Wayne, which is a really active scene. It
is.
I mean, we have 3 or 4 really active theaters that
We
have
are
their own
lucky.
families, but it's also a larger family
it really
as well.
Is.
It's quite a community.
We are so lucky
Yeah.
to have the talent in this community. When you think of Fort Wayne, you don't really think of the vast amounts of gifted people that we really have in all of the arts, not just in theater, but in all of the arts. It's
So
fascinating.
when did choreography sort of enter the picture for you?
I actually choreographed in high school.
Oh,
I
you
started,
did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I always, because I told you I'm a kind of nerd, I would love to study plays and musicals, and I loved to find the layers and how all of these layers kind of told the story, because basically all arts, every art, regardless of what kind it is, we're telling stories.
Right.
And I just found it fascinating that you could use dance to help tell this story. So I started choreographing our high school musicals.
Where, and what
back
high
then.
school?
New Haven.
Oh, New Haven. All
High
right.
School,
Yeah.
yep. And then I started, you know, I had a background in dance. I had taken classes. But yeah, then I met Mary Kay, and she was amazing, because she taught me, and anybody who ever worked with her, the difference between choreographing for dancing and choreographing for musicals, because there's a difference in using the movement of the body to help tell the story. You don't have to be, you know, a prima ballerina to be a very good person in musical theater, to
And
dance.
It takes some real skill, I think, for a community, if you will, community choreographer, because they've got to deal with a lot of, quote, non-dancers
Yeah,
and
you really
make
do.
us all look like we're dancers.
But
And
that's what I think is
they're so
fascinating
good
about
at
it. And it's really okay
Yeah.
to say, I am not a dancer.
Right.
That's okay. You still have the ability within you to use your body in a lyrical way to help tell the story. And that is what I find fascinating.
Does one
about it.
interest you more than the other as you
It
know?
depends on the show.
Oh, okay.
It depends on the show. You know, there
Yeah.
are some shows that you look, it's sort of like as a performer, there are some shows that you look at and say, oh, I would like, Sweeney Todd, for example.
Right.
I would love to be in the chorus of Sweeney Todd. The music is just fabulous.
It is.
West Side Story, you want to be one of those dancers. You know,
Right.
it just depends on the show.
Yeah.
And same on the production side of it. The same thing. I've done directing and choreographing and everything. You kind of look at it and think, oh, I really want to direct this
Right,
one, or I really
right.
want to choreograph that one. So yeah, I love all of the parcels that come. in the
Where did
theater.
you learn then because I'm a song and dance man and I'm a director, and I fashioned myself a choreographer in my kitchen, or as we like to
My
call
living
it,
room.
Jono's Kmart choreography is what we call it. It's very appropriate for Kmart choreography. But what I lacked was I learned how to dance the way you did in a show with a dance teacher teaching the non-dancers, and I ended up being a tap dancer and all of those things. But I don't have the language to choreograph. Where did you learn that? Where did you learn the
I
technical
took
aspect?
classes.
You did?
Yes, but I think when you're anyone who's worked with me will know that there are certain moves that you'd call them what it is easier for people to remember.
Okay.
Those who know me well know that there's, you have the Fozzie Bears.
Right.
And because that's how people remember them.
True.
If you're dealing with people who aren't dancers, for you to use that kind of language, and there is nothing wrong with that. I think it is important for,
Right.
we should educate ourselves and our fellow actors and dancers on the correct terms, but sometimes it makes people feel more comfortable if you
Right.
just
Grapevine.
Yeah.
Do that grapevine.
Exactly.
Everyone knows what that is.
You know,
Yeah.
step behind step.
Right,
It's
right,
really
right,
okay.
right. Yeah. Which show do you think was most challenging for you as a choreographer?
Oh goodness. And every one of them.
Every
I think
one
they
of
are
them?
all challenging. Yeah.
Well,
Because it depends on what the pieces are that you're given.
yeah.
If you're doing West Side Story and you're doing West Side Story with a group of non-dancers, that's very challenging.
That's very challenging. You're right.
Whereas
You're right.
if you're doing it with people who have this huge background in dance, and you can just say, well, that's great.
There's a lot of shortcuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you plan a lot in choreography, or is a fair amount of it
I
created
do.
in the rehearsal hall?
Well, I like to have a very give and take. But you have, yes, you have to go in planned. I can't.
I mean, you can't go. It depends how big the company. You can't go with 20 people and go.
No.
We're gonna.
What
we're
should
gonna
we do
see-"
today?
Yeah, exactly. I've directed choreographers like that. It's a
No,
little.
I
It's a little
can't,
scary. No.
because
right.
I think it's important. I think the pictures that you create are important.
Right.
It's like I said, it's a very important tool, and you have to work with your director to
Yeah.
know what is the storyline, what is the feature that you want. What do you want told through this number? And so, no, I couldn't ever just go in and do that. Although I like my actors to know that it's important for them to work through the dance to tell the story of their, whatever their through line is.
exactly.
So I would never be so
Right.
hard-nosed to say, no, you must do, this here. I think it's important that you have that relationship between a choreographer and an actor. But yeah,
What about the relationship between a choreographer and a director? Because
it's the director's vision. When you think of all the moving parts in a musical, you have to have somebody who has a vision, and it's kind of the person who takes all of those. Everybody has ideas. Every actor, the choreographer,
yes.
the
Everybody
costume
has an
designer,
idea.
the lighting designer.
Right.
Everybody has these great ideas, which is like a starburst, and it takes the director to say, okay, those are all great and fascinating and lovely, but we need to point them here. This is the direction we need to go. So you have to have a very close relationship with your director.
You do, and I won't name names, but as a professional director, when I've been asked to work professionally, I've asked for choreographers.
Oh, they
who
can make
I
or
have
break
a
it.
shortcut conversation, who
Absolutely.
I have a sort of a relationship with, that we can get to the point easily, and I know what's going to happen, and if I have to step in, I can step in. But
Well, you have to.
You have to.
You have to, because it's like I said, somebody has to have that final vision.
Right.
I may have great ideas, but if they aren't helping you tell your story as the director, then I'm not doing my job. And
we only have a couple of minutes
Okay.
left. Tell me a little bit about the challenges of Willy Wonka.
oh my gosh.
That was humongous.
I
mean,
didn't even have the challenging part. Leslie Horman did. Leslie Horman she did a great job with those kids. We had 80, count them, 80.
I know, you had 80, you had 40 and 40, but you took care of the other side of it, making sure that they were ready and able for those.
But you know, Leslie did all those lovely, wonderful kids that we had, and it was fabulous having all of those kids in there. But she did a great job with those Oompa Loompas, and then I really had the easier part because I got to work with the adults.
And you have something on the horizon right now.
I do. I'm actually right now we're doing Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Right.
At the Civic, and Gary Lanier and I co-choreographed that, my lovely Gary, and then I'm going to be choreographing Cabaret for the Civic in the winter.
Wonderful.
February, I believe it goes up.
That requires a very specific style.
It does. Bob Fosse, my
Bob
favorite.
Fosse, if people are going to be looking for
My
Bob
favorite,
Fosse.
yeah.
That's right. Well, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels you choreographed with Gary runs for 2 weekends, I think, the next 2 weekends, at the Civic Theater, and people can get tickets for that at artstix.org.
And they absolutely should. It is a fantastically fun show.
Yeah. Well, Leslie, it's fantastic to have you on the show.
Always fantastic seeing you.
So happy that you're able to join us,
Me
and
too.
I look forward to more work.
Me too.
Soon we'll work together.
I know, we will. We have
so.
to.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm John O'Connell, Dean of the IPFW College of Visual and Performing Arts. On the next Arts Weekly, tune in to meet Katrina Newman from Jefferson Point and Josette Jordan from the Allen County Public Library, who will discuss their Friday Nights Live and Rock the Plaza concert series. Then featured Fort Wayne artist Alicia Pyle drops by to talk about her music and work with the Alicia Pyle Quartet. For up-to-the-minute arts updates, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And be sure to join us here Thursday evenings at 7:30 on PBS 39. Thanks for watching Arts Weekly.
Support for Arts Weekly is provided by PBS 39, the Hour Foundation, Martin Tierney, and the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne.